The preamble of the UN Charter sets out equality of rights for women as one of the UN's central goals. Article 1 of the Charter proclaims that one of the UN's purposes is international cooperation in promoting human rights, without distinction as to sex. The UN Charter legally binds member nations to strive towards full realisation of human rights, including equality of the sexes. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights further proclaims this equality, saying that everyone is entitled to equality before the law and human rights and fundamental freedoms, without distinction of any kind, including their sex.
Then, the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights and the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights translated these amorphous human rights into a legally binding form, again not allowing discrimination on the basis of sex.
And yet, despite all these measures, women, especially in developing countries, are still subject to enormous disadvantage in terms of education, healthcare and political rights. For instance, women in sub-Saharan Africa are more than 1.5 times as likely as men to contract HIV. More than 10,000 girls a day will get married before their 15th birthday. And of the roughly 110 million children around the world without access to education, more than 60% of them are girls.
So what's the UN done about it? Well, in 1981, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women came into force. It's a kind of Bill of Rights so that women can experience substantive equality in their communities. Only Iran, Palau, Somalia, Sudan, South Sudan and Tonga haven't signed it. The USA has signed but not ratified the convention.
And CEDAW has led to a range of successes, even in countries that have historically had a troubling record in terms of their treatment of women. Take Mexico for an example. An Amnesty International report in 2008 revealed that 1 in 4 Mexican women have suffered abuse at the hands of their partner. The report cited the case of a woman named Susana, who had faced 10 years of abuse, including broken bones in her hand, face and torso. Susana had attempted several times to report this abuse to legal authorities, but she was turned away each time and informed that her partner had not broken any laws. The one time that Susana's partner was detained, he was released after just 1 day.
However, in 2007, the Mexican government introduced legislation called the General Law on Women's Access to a Life Free from Violence. This drew heavily on CEDAW, especially Recommendation 19, which pertains to women's health and protection from violence. By 2009, all 32 Mexican states had adopted this new law, demonstrating the Mexican government's commitment to ending the abuse of women like Susana. Although it will take a significant amount of funding and commitment to ensure these laws are enforced, it is a step to demonstrate that women's rights are valuable, and infringement of these rights will no longer be tolerated within the Mexican legal system.
And CEDAW has also led to important breakthroughs in Kuwait, where up until a few years ago, women were refused the right to vote. This was despite the fact that women held positions such as the director of the National University, the Kuwaiti ambassador to Austria, and the Under-Secretary for Higher Education. However, in 2005, Kuwait followed a recommendation by the CEDAW Committee to grant full voting rights to women. This was a particularly historic moment for the women's suffrage movement and for the CEDAW Committee, as it left only a handful of countries around the world that continued to deny or restrict this fundamental right to women. And even more importantly, it put pressure on other Middle Eastern states which still restrict this right to their women, like Lebanon and the United Arab Emirates. In fact, in September 2011, another Middle Eastern nation, Saudi Arabia, announced that it will be granting full voting rights to its women. And although countries like Kuwait and Saudi Arabia still have a fair way to go to catch up with most Western democratic nations in terms of their treatment of women, allowing women to participate in their democratic process is the first step in opening the door to a more just and equal role for women.
CEDAW is a treaty in which measurable success can be seen, but there's still a long way to go. For more information, check out groups like UN Women. They work to promote the role of women within society, in Australia and internationally. For more information, there's also a great book called Half the Sky. It's a bit confronting, but it has many accolades and loads of information. Lastly, there's some great resources online specifically targeted for young people. Check them out in the video description.